To learn Vim, it helps to know how you start it and how you get back out of it and save your work. So let's look at some of the fundamentals in controlling Vim before we get into the details of its command language. To begin a Vim editing session, you use the Vim program name followed by the path to the file that you want to edit. So for example, if we wanted to write a file that was hello Vim, I could say something like vim hello-vim.txt. And when I press enter, I'm brought into a running Vim editor. We've got on our container some settings established in Vim to make it more user-friendly than Vim can be by default. I'll talk through what some of the things we're seeing at the bottom of the screen are all about in just a second, but let me return to the slides to discuss how we undo changes and back out of Vim when we need to. When you're working on a brand new file, you'll see an empty file buffer load when you first open that file in Vim, but if you were to use Vim to open a pre-existing file, you would see its contents in the editor instead. When we're making changes, we can undo those changes with the U key. I'll come back to this, but just know that if you make a change and you need to undo it, the easiest way is just to hit U. Additionally, because Vim is modal, which you'll hear more about in just a moment, you are often going to want to get back to the mode that allows you to easily save your work and exit out of Vim if you need to. And the easiest way to do this, and the button to remember to, or the keystrokes to remember to press if you find yourself in a place that you need to get out of, is Control plus open square bracket. There are other keys you can use, like the escape key is actually synonymous with this. But in my experience, I found it much more productive to get in the habit of using Control plus open square bracket, because you can hit that with both of your pinkies, than any other key. Advanced Vim users will often rebind this key to something else to suit their preferences. But when you do that, you start to realize that when you log into another system or you're using somebody else's Vim, the keystroke doesn't work for you. Control plus open square bracket is the one that will get you back out of the mode that you're currently in and get you to a place where you can exit and quit Vim safely. So once we're here, we can try pressing that button just to prove to ourselves that it's not going to have any effect here. But if you press like the I key, you'll notice that we go into insert mode and I could enter some text. And oh no, I want to go back to normal mode, Control plus open square bracket. And then I could press the U key for undo, and I'm back to where I started. And as the slide indicates here, capital ZZ, which you can think of sort of as a mnemonic for going to sleep. So Shift ZZ backs me out of Vim, and I've exited the Vim text editor. Right? So this slide I put up first because these are sort of the most important things to know when you're working in a file. How do you open a file to edit it? If you make a change that you didn't mean to, how do you undo that? And then how do you get out of Vim safely and without work being saved? So let's talk about some of the state transitions in Vim and a little bit more about state. By default, when you begin Vim, you're in normal mode. So I'm once again going to open up a new file. You see that indicated down at the bottom, named hellovim.txt. And we've got a special plugin that is running in Vim that tells us what mode we're in at any given time. And we can see that we're in normal mode in the file that we're editing. We're using Unix style line endings. We'll learn what that means later. This is a UTF-8 file. This is a type of encoding. We're working in text. And then some information about where we're at in the file. If this were a much bigger file, we would see that we were only looking at a smaller percentage of the file in where we were in that file, and then the specific line number ranges we're working with. Right? So we're in normal mode now, and normal mode is where we'll use the command language that you'll learn in the next video. But when you want to learn how to insert and start adding text to our document, right? So to get into insert mode, we're going to have a transition, and there are many ways that we can transition into the insert mode. It will insert wherever the cursor is. Capital I will insert at the start of a line, and one of the conventions you'll notice that's common is typically the difference between an uppercase letter and a lowercase letter when you're working in Vim is something that has to do with a line level or a bigger picture operation. So here, capital I, if you wanted to insert at the beginning of a line, you could use that. I'll talk about the difference between append and insert in just a moment, and then we'll come back to change and insert on new lines in just a moment. Right? So let's try going to insert mode and adding some text. So again, as soon as you press I, we're in insert mode, and we've transitioned into this modality. And now I could say something like, this is some example text. This is some text on another line. And I'm still in insert mode, so if I press enter, I'm brought to the next line. But in order to save my work or navigate to somewhere else, I need to return back to normal mode. So it's worth getting some practice saying control, open square bracket, and you'll notice that I'm back into normal mode. And if I were to make my screen just slightly smaller, or my text just slightly smaller, you could see that normal mode is there. It's running out of space, okay? Similarly, I'll come back to some of the keys for navigating around and moving up, down, left, and right soon. You'll notice that if you try pressing up, down, left, and right on your keyboard, you'll see a message at the bottom of your Vim with the way that we've got it configured that will tell you what button you should be pressing instead in order to move your cursor in the direction that you'd like. You'll notice that clicking on Vim isn't going to have any effect. We're going to focus on using keyboard navigation only in Vim, and this is where you'll get some really great powers from being able to move around your file much more quickly once you get past needing to use the mouse to do so. Okay, so we saw that we can use control plus open square bracket to get back to normal mode. So you can see we can transition from one mode to another, one mode to another. To get into what's called visual mode, which I'm not going to demonstrate here because we'll have a complete video on visual mode. This allows you to select blocks of text at a time. It allows you to select columns of text and work in a column way that you've probably not had experience working in yet. And there's some things that you can do like copy and paste, cut and paste. The way that we think of those in modern text editors is what we would think of using visual mode for in Vim. Once again, you can get back out with control open square bracket. So this is your safety key. This is what's bringing you back to normal mode, and from normal mode you can exit Vim, which we'll see in a second. There are ways of going between visual and insert mode, and we're not going to worry ourselves with that quite yet. When you use the colon, and so I could show you an example of this. If I say colon and then W, this is a write command. But what's interesting here, and if you think back to the very previous video, with ed, there was a W followed by a file name, and that's how we saved a file. Well, here we've already opened up hellovim.txt, so that's the file we're working with. But that W is the same W in language that was in ed. So when you're using a colon, we're giving what's called X commands, and in the crazy history of text editors, X followed ed, but it's in the same spirit. We're actually writing ed-like commands here. We're not going to spend much time with ed commands, but the W command is worth knowing. So when I do colon followed by W, I'm writing that file out. We can see that 63 characters were written, and now we've saved that work to our disk, right? So colon W saves your buffer to the disk. Once again, from X mode, if I had started and accidentally pressed a colon and I meant to be in insert mode and typing that, control open square bracket will get you back out of starting to work on an X command in that way. You can go from visual to X mode as well. And from X mode, we just saw we can use colon W. I should add that to the slide. But colon WQ will save your work and quit. That's one way of quitting from X mode. And colon Q exclamation point will quit from X mode as well without saving your work. Typically though, if you're trying to save your work or just get out of Vim, the recommended way is to use the from normal mode capital ZZ for write and quit, or ZQ for quit without modifications. This idea that there's so many different ways to exit Vim is a fun meme. And so there's a website here that actually has some different ways. And I saw on Programming Humor Reddit a while ago, this book that's written in the spirit of O'Reilly with an illustrated cover on exiting Vim eventually. Just memorize these 14 contextually dependent instructions. This website is particularly funny. I would encourage looking at it. It is a GitHub repository that has incredibly obtuse and obscure commands for exiting, for getting out of Vim. And so it became a meme that people come up, or we're trying to come up with the craziest ways of getting out of Vim while you're in Vim. And so people have all sorts of wild and crazy means for doing this. And it's a meme because oftentimes people who are new to Vim and find themselves working in it realize they have no idea how to get out, because these commands are things that you just have to know in order to use them or look them up. But again, they were on the very first slide. You've got a sense of how you can get out of a particular mode in Vim, control open square bracket, and then get out of it with the capital ZZ or ZQ. So we've got some instructions here that I would encourage you to try moving through on your own. This was just like what we did before. So if you've been following along with me up to this point, you would be great. So if I say ZZ and clear my screen, and then I look at my files, if I were to look at hello vim.txt again, which is the file that we were just editing, and I've got some more files in this directory than you will. This was what we were working on before, so I could press the J key to move down or the K key to move up, and press I to go into insert mode, and then start typing again. So this is another line of text. Press Control open square bracket, and ZZ again, capital, to back out of it. And so when I go back into this file, my work was saved and all is well. So this is a quick introduction to moving around in the different modes of Vim and how to start it and exit it. In the next video, we'll look at, well, how do you actually get around with the keyboard so that you can go and insert text at the places you want and edit in the ways that will be able to allow you to be much more productive than just what we showed here. For now, though, the keys that you need are JK, which will move you up and down, and L and H, which will move you left and right. And then when you get to a point where you want to insert some text, if you press I, you will begin typing right where your cursor is. Oops. And if you press A, so I'm about to press A for append, it will start allowing you to insert text just after where your cursor is. And that winds up being important when you're at the end of a line and you want to insert some text at the very end of a line. You press A, and now you can add text to the end. Getting comfortable starting to think about H, J, K, and L as your directional keys for moving around in a very local manner will help you get started with some very basics, but soon we'll see actually that's not the way that we recommend you jumping in your text. We're going to show you how to jump directly to where you want to go or very close to it as their first approximation, and then you might use those keys to move very close to where your cursor is. But typically for big jumps, you're going to find there are much better ways of getting directly to where you want to go with a simple, quick command. We'll see all that soon, but for now, practice getting in and out of Vim and comfortable with the idea that there are some modalities, and the key combination to remember is Control open square bracket to get you back to normal mode, and then capital ZZ or :WQ or any of those other wild and crazy ways of exiting Vim to get out of it.